Welcome to another episode of Daily Gym. Every day at work, we have to convince somebody, a colleague, a superior, a customer, maybe even an investor. And most likely we have to do so multiple times every single day. Whenever I'm in such a situation myself, I ask myself three questions: who, what, and how. The who, of course, refers to our target audience. But make no mistake, it doesn't have to be directly the one you're dealing with, the person that reads your email, the person that picks up your phone, or the person that you're talking with one-on-one. But ultimately, it's the one that's making the decisions. And sometimes that person is behind the scenes. You don't actually see it. It's a parent who pays for a child's education, or it's the senior of your superior who decides ultimately how much budget gets allocated to the project, or if the project gets the green light or not. Imagine you're a company trying to sell Japanese language teaching. In my case, I started learning Japanese when I was back in university. My main motivation was that I was reading books or comics that were translated from Japanese into English, and I realized that a lot of books or comics were not available in any of the languages that I was able to speak. So I wanted to be able to learn Japanese, particularly as reading, so that I could read much more material. Compare that to somebody who's a programmer and who wants to live in Japan, work in Japan, make a living in Japan as a programmer. For him, being able to read Japanese might not be so beneficial, but instead being able to communicate, especially verbally, with his or her colleagues is much more important. That brings us to the what. What is our desire? What is it that the customer, or what is it that the person we're dealing with, what is it that the ultimate decision maker wants? In this case, if you think about the situation I just painted, I wanted to be able to read more books. Of course, both me as well as the programmer want to learn Japanese, but fundamentally why we are trying to learn Japanese, what it is what we want to be able to do with Japanese is very different. And even the fact that I want to be able to read in Japanese, there's a much more deeper lying motivation for me, because I want to be able to read more books. I want to be able to enjoy my leisure time even more by having a wider variety of books at my disposal that I'm able to read. Contrast that to the person who's trying to work in Japan as a programmer. For that person, he or she wants to be able to speak Japanese, yes, but at a deeper lying level, that person wants to be able to continue living in Japan, supporting him or herself, and do the thing that he or she truly loves, which is programming. So whenever we try to convince the person, we have to think of our messaging that it really targets these deeper lying motivations or rationale for why a person would want to make a purchase or take a certain action. Then that brings us to the how. When we think of convincing a person, ultimately we try to play on the emotional part. So we try to tell a story. We try to make a person imagine, picture, vision a future in which this product or service has been delivered, or this project has gotten off the ground. Because we all want to have a nicer future. We all want to have something that's better than it is right now. That's why we have to let the person imagine. Once we're able to implant that picture, instill that picture in their mind, then we can start playing on the rational side. What steps need to be taken to get there? Why are we the perfect company or perfect person to deliver to them? What are their issues? What are their doubts that they might have? And how can we take away all these doubts? But we always start with the emotional component. If we compare again the situation of me versus the programmer in terms of learning Japanese, in my case, the messaging would probably be something like how to read a Japanese novel within 1 year. While for the programmer, it might be something, what is a shortcut to speaking Japanese in 3 months? Or how to be able to nail a Japanese job interview fully in 100% in Japanese. And if we take a third situation where we're trying to sell a language teaching service to elementary or junior high school students, we know that the parents are ultimately the ones paying for it. So in this case, we're not directing our message to the children, but we would direct our message to the parents, saying, for example, something like, how can we make our child able to work in the 21st century? Or how are we what steps to take to have our child be able to communicate with everybody around the world? Of course, the copy can be better and we have to optimize the ways in which we say it. But generally speaking, that's the process I try to go through whenever I try to convince somebody of something. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have noticed anything about convincing somebody, what works or what doesn't work, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be back with another video tomorrow. Have a nice day, everyone.